Well, hence the name Mosaic, right? It has to fit like the DNA of what you're all about.
Do you know what? So Mosaic wasn't the first name that I came up with.
Oh, what was it? What was the first name?
I had a really good idea, but it ended up being racist.
Oh, you got to share it now.
What's this?
I'm not sure as Americans you know this, but the Americans, in America you have a game called telephone, right?
Yeah.
Where the idea is that I whisper something into your ear, it gets passed on, and then the person at the end will say something, and it will end up having been completely different to what was first said, right?
Yes.
Everyone's nodding.
Yeah.
In England, that is called Chinese whispers.
Oh.
Why is it called Chinese whispers?
Well, I thought there was nothing wrong about it. I was like, that was my first idea because it actually is. It conveys this passing on element. It's in China, perfect. Then I did the research, and it comes back from I think when sort of we're doing the Opium Wars. This is the British, right? And it was in the Qing Empire, where the Qing Empire was in disarray, and it was like how the Mandarins of the Qing Empire would communicate, and they would get garbled up from one Mandarin to the other Mandarin. And so it was, you know how every country, when they're fighting another country, they put, they call them the worst things. Like I think when the French and the English were fighting, the English would say, oh, homosexuality, which obviously wasn't a good thing back then. That's the French disease.
Oh.
And the French, I found out, would say la malade anglais was homosexuality. It's the English disease. They would call each other what they didn't like, right? So when you're at war, or when you're, just generally at loggerheads, you would attribute bad qualities.
You try to dehumanize the other people.
Or just if there's a bad thing, you would attribute it to your enemy, right?
Right, because you're if you were practicing understanding of the other culture and trying to understand their perspective, then you probably wouldn't be in a war. The fact that you're in a war is because you think that these people are hopeless.
Oh no, look at Trump. The China disease. It's the same. It's been going on since Voltaire. This is something which is not new. Not just China. It's the West and the East. We always use the other side as a foil as to what we either want to do or what we'd rather avoid. When you look at it from the bigger context, China versus the West. I mean, in America, I think you have something called a Chinese fire alarm.
Oh, is it called the Chinese fire alarm?
Yeah, you get out when you get out and you
exactly. It's the same racist trope where the Chinese are panicking and they're going round and round. It's the same thing. Anyway, so that's a little bit of a detour, but that's why in the end I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't call it Chinese whispers.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, that saved you. You did the research. Imagine if you didn't do the research, and today we're talking to Oscar from Chinese Whispers.
Yeah.
Chinese Whispers with the season 2 Chinese fire alarm.
Chinese 3, Chinese virus. Like, God.
Then you get that post like, Honest Drink is so racist. They invite racist people on the show.
Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. I sidestepped that one. Yeah.
Well, Oscar, there's a few things I want to unpack with you.
Can I pour my drink while you're asking?
Please.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for you to pour more for yourself.
You smash some more ice, Eric. I think you didn't smash enough.
Please.
Okay, good.
No, but you were talking before about the midlife crisis, and this is, some of our earliest episodes were revolved around this issue because this is was one of the genesis.
That was our catalyst.
So I just find that really fascinating, and I'm wondering from your standpoint of would you classify your crisis as a struggle with, we talked about ego, but would it be, I guess, maybe down to your identity? Because you're talking about who you are and these dualities, these split sides you have. Would you boil all that down simply to a sense of identity?
I mean, again, we're in a period where I'm stressed out. I've stressed myself out. So I don't know how I would answer this question in a different time. But right now, the timing is such that I'm stuck in China for 2 years. And I wonder to what extent that is the underlying reason why I am really going crazy. Because I've lived in Asia now for 18 years. And until now, it's always been a plus. It's been I have whatever my baseline is, me living in Asia, it adds something to it. It's just always been an augmentation of my ideas, the things that otherwise I wouldn't think about. I can look at Europe, I can look at the States from an inside-outside perspective that I've always enjoyed in a way that I know that if I was still in my day job in London, I wouldn't really have the wherewithal, I wouldn't have the tools to even know how to question my own culture. Now that I have not been able to escape China or set foot outside of China for one day in 2 years, for the first time, I feel like it's becoming a minus. Something is taking me away from what I should be doing. It's a weird thing that I can't articulate. I've just started to think of it in these terms.
Can you put your finger on it in terms of what it might be?
It's a pressure valve that needs to be released for me. When I've lived in Asia, I've always, we have thought of it as a right almost that, every 3 or 4 months we can go to a different place, reset, and then look forward to coming home to China. I would even say it in those terms. Or home to if I lived in Hong Kong or when I was in Singapore or when I was in Japan. I'm coming home and I'm looking forward to my home and my life in this country. I never use the word expat. I hate that word expat with such a passion because there's no distinction between me and another economic migrant. I'm just a migrant. I've chosen to be here for economic reasons. This is my home. And I'm engaged and I'm in this society as an active person, right? Without that pressure valve being released, the negativity of being in any strong culture, and China is a strong culture, especially right now, is, I think, building up, which is, I think, the main reason why I'm not just skipping down the road in my happy-go-lucky phase. And you've talked about this on the podcast too, because we are in the world of content production, and that puts me in a situation where I'm responsible for putting things out into the world, and I've got to be happy with that content in a way that feels authentic. Yes, that's a personal thing, but also involves the right level of nuance that is balanced between, let's say, China and the outside world. So I feel the crisis is I've built this project, which I am proud of. I love it. And now I have to work out, my mindset is not in the same place that it was 2 years ago. So perhaps that's what's creating this negativity and making me question, like, what am I doing? This is what a midlife crisis is. It's what am I doing? And why am I doing it, right?
Or maybe you're just getting a little bit of cabin fever.
Yeah,
right?
It's not just cabin fever. I mean, you're right. I don't want to talk over you. It's more than just that, because it's tied in with what I'm doing day in, day out, which is presenting this case for understanding and cross-cultural communication and fun at a time when perhaps I'm not entirely having the most fun being in a country that I've loved to live in. That's something which I don't think I can change, because I love being in China and I love escaping China. And when one of those outlets is not open to me, then I feel that this is the first time in 18 years that I feel like I'm missing out on not being elsewhere in the world right now.
Let me ask you this. What do you do to relax? What do you do to de-stress?
I'm giving out the impression that I'm stressed. I'm not. I'm stressed right now. And I can't really relax because I've got a bunch of stuff to do and a time limit, which is impossible. So I'm just at a crunch point. Normally, I'm fine. I do enjoy traveling, and when I travel within China, I mean, we talked about this, I think, before we were on mic. Being in China has allowed us to not take the week off and go somewhere else, but to explore parts of China we otherwise would never have bothered seeing. So that stuff is important, but it is still China. It's this monolithic culture, becoming more and more monolithic. Even when I try and seek out the more exotic sides of China, I see the monolithic China encroaching into that side of China as well, which then it's a negative loop where I wanted to have an ersatz foreign experience. I've come to this part of China and I want to experience a substitute for going to outside of China, and I feel, especially recently, that, the Han Chinese culture is really, really all pervasive, even in the outer reaches, even in, the places where you want to seek out minority cultures. So I cannot get that release even, within these interesting and exotic and wonderful parts of China. So yeah, I mean, I do have the outlets for stress, and you're talking to me at a peak stress time, which is nothing compared to other people. Like, boo fucking who, right? It's not a big deal. Even as I'm saying I'm stressed, I'm like, I'm not really stressed compared to other people's lives. I mean, for God's sake, Oscar. So there's a natural sort of flow where I will get stressed, and then I'll do this self-evaluation and going, you're being a complete twat. And I will have some kind of outlet, and then I will come down again. It's not a constant state of stress.
Well, how has being a Brit and having the experiences and spending the time you have in China and seeing it as a home, how has your perspective changed over time, you feel, in terms of, I mean, we don't need to get all political, but in terms of the kind of climate we live in these days internationally, how have your experiences and, I guess, time here shaped you in terms of changing your perspective?
So this is going back to identity. So my passport is British. So we started off this, you said, being a Brit. I am a British citizen, but my family were refugees from the Czech and Slovak republics, or Czechoslovakia, as it was in '68. We're also Jewish, so that's part of my identity. I'm gay. All of these parts of my identity are, they mean that I'm never really feel like I'm an insider. I mean, I've never really been the Brit. I've been the weird Brit with a name that sounds weird. I mean, my name is not English. I've been, eating weird food at home, which my friends at school can't understand. I've been Jewish. I've been gay. Those are things that put you on the outside of mainstream society. Less so now, but certainly when I was growing up. So I've never really felt like I've changed. When I've been here, I've been able to skirt above mainstream society when it suits me, or delve into some kind of mainstream society when it suits me. That's kind of how I've lived my life anywhere in the world, which I guess is why, I am this diversity sort of person. I mean, it's just part of who I am. So, it hasn't really made a big difference until now. And at the same time, I've created this identity of being the China guy, right? Where you're in the firing line from both sides. I'm sure you've talked about this with previous guests, where if you say anything critical about China, then you hate China. And if you say anything positive about China, then the other side will say you're a China freak. Like, I don't even recognize you anymore. And so that, that side is now counting against me, and I don't enjoy being.
Do you feel
person.
that? I mean,
Sure.
even your home base, your family in the UK, I'm assuming that your parents or other family relatives are there. Like, do you guys have that type of conversation where they're kind of
frankly, no, because they
Okay.
won't listen to they won't listen to the podcast because they're not interested in China. This is the problem with my whole conceit, because I have created a niche, which is for people who are interested in learning about China through the lives of human beings. Done. That's my elevator pitch. It's about learning about a different culture. It doesn't, I mean, most of the stories aren't even about China. It's just peripherally, these people live in China and these things happen. And you can, learn by osmosis something about China in every episode. Done. But I can't reach the people outside of China who would rather China was blasted off the fucking planet. They're not going
Because they wouldn't
to
be listening to you in the first place.
they're not going to engage with a podcast called Mosaic of China. And that's a mistake in the name. But then it's also the people who are here in China, where a lot of the guys, and I'm saying guys because it's normally the kind of middle-class, middle-aged, white guy who I'm thinking of, in terms of my podcast. They are the kind of people who think they know everything about China. And how can I learn anything from anyone else? Because I am Mr. China expert.
Too cool for school.
It's this ridiculous. It's this mix of over. They're overly confident and they're privileged because they've lived in Asia and they this privilege somehow seeps into their consciousness. and they can't live, they can't learn something new from anybody else, you know? So I've created a niche that no one wants. I've created a niche that, you know, the people who are in China, they're only the people who are nicely curious and want to learn about other people. And it's the same kind of people outside of China. And everyone else, I can't reach. Yeah. So again, I don't know what the question was, but yeah, that's sort of where I've ended up with the project. We were talking about me being stressed and, you know, this whole
and then the
identity
British,
side.
like
Yeah. So
identifying.
the identity side is something which I do struggle with because, like, where I don't want to be the China guy, even though I am the China guy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with at least the reason why I asked my question is because previously on shows we've discussed our identities as Asian Americans living here, sometimes feeling lost in between both sides. But you being in Asia for 18 years, to generalize being a white guy, right? Like, how do you identify?
To be racist.
Being a racist white guy, yeah, come on, give me my full
like,
title.
he's like, just to be racist, a white guy.
Right? But just like finding that identity, being here for 18 years,
Yeah,
talking with, I'm sure, a very diverse group of family, friends from past and now. You know, like where do you sit now because of the climate, the recent climate?
yeah. I mean, it's something where maybe I have a different experience to you, and
Yeah.
it's actually, you know, in one of my episodes, it was the finale of season 2. I talked with I got to be careful what I say because you probably, if I say the word, you might not be able to post
Get
this.
down. Take
So
it down.
it was somebody who had transitioned. We're talking about gender, and that was a fascinating story in a way that made me think about my experience, because the thing about people who have transitioned is, and it's a controversial topic, but it's the word passing. So if you can pass as the gender which you feel, then that allows you to get through life without coming under too much external pressure. That's what passing means. So if someone who has transitioned or is in the process of transitioning, if they pass for the gender that they feel, then they are in a privileged position.
Wait. I'm still not clear about this concept of passing. What do you mean passing?
Passing. So using just the grammar. So here is Justin, and you can pass as someone who is quite educated. It's about your external perception, how you are perceived externally.
Oh, so not like how other people are viewing you.
How
Okay.
other people view you.
Okay.
So I can't think of another example. Okay, he passes as a pianist because he can
Okay.
just about get away with it.
Okay.
Well,
Right?
I mean, and like a completely far off example is like Thomas Jefferson's children with Sally Hemings, and there were a couple of them that could pass as white men.
That's it. So there's a racial version of it, there's a gender version of it, all kinds of things
Like,
manifested in different
people
ways.
you can, if you decide to act that way, you can pass and be considered by someone else as part of that tribe, even
Yes.
if it's that person is from the same tribe.
Right.
It's
So you can-
legitimacy. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It is. And then in the context of the interview that I did, what was fascinating to me was like there is a hierarchy, because within this community, there's a hierarchy of people who have the resources to afford them the operations, to afford them the makeup, to afford them the kind of couture that will help them pass. So it's to do with your resources. It's a classism. And then the genetic lottery, like if you happen to be born in a body which is hard to pass, but you still identify as a different gender, for example. So that's all of this is to talk about you guys in China. You can pass. So you have a lot more flexibility because when you want to, you can pass as a Chinese person. Whereas I'm a walking advert for who I am. And I think that's a different aspect that maybe, you know, because you are all the same, you are all American Asians, that's the diversity aspect that you might lack in your perspectives of living in China. Now, it's not a terrible experience to live in China as a white person. It's fine. But you do understand the microaggressions. You do understand that. And I mean, let me put it this way. If I ever got involved in a situation where the police were involved, there is no way I would imagine the police would be on my side as a white person. Like, whatever happens, the tendency would be for them to, like, I'm in trouble here. Which I think a Chinese person listening to that would go, "What do you mean? The police? They're here just to be safe. What are you talking about? You're this aggressive white person, whatever." In exactly the same way that a black person in America would feel about the police. It gives you this perspective which you would never have had. You would never have had. And just the way that, okay, let's say it was a year ago now, I was in Lijiang Airport and it was post-COVID and there was this table set up and they were pointing to everyone who did not look Chinese to come and sign extra paperwork. I was with an Asian American. He was on an American passport. I had been actually in China longer than him. I haven't left for 2 years. He had, at that point, he had been here less. He's more susceptible to having had COVID than I was, but I was the one who had to go and sign the extra stuff. It's nothing. Like, I had to walk through Jing'an Park. I went all the way through Jing'an Park before the guard came and dragged me back all the way to the... I was almost at the end, but he dragged me all the way to the front because I was white. I was like, I'm wearing a mask. That person's not wearing a mask. I could speak not bad Chinese, enough to talk to the guard, and he was like, "No, well, you have to get out of the park." Tiny things like that affect your experience where it's not life-threatening. In other parts of the world, it could be life-threatening. But I think that's where I would say to your answer about my identity in China, it's absolutely fine. I have a privileged existence here. But I just get the strong sense, no matter where I go in China, that this is China is for the Chinese right now.
Well, I totally get what you're saying. And I do realize that, like, as, given our identity, we do kind of have some sort of privilege in that context here because we look Chinese, right? We're ethnically Chinese. But do you feel, and I'm really curious because this could just be from my own personal perspective, right? But do you feel that there is some sliver of it being refreshing that at least the microaggressions, at least that layer of, if we want to call it racism, I guess we can call it racism, right? Is kind of just more stated and transparent here, whereas, like, if you're a white guy and they're not hiding the fact that they're profiling based on you being a foreigner and white, whereas maybe in other places of the world they'll do the same thing but they'll hide it and they'll deny it. So I'm wondering, does that make a difference at all in terms of how you feel about it, or not really, and at the end of the day it's profiling?
Yeah, it's of course the latter. Of course. And this is where, if you were saying that, this is where I want you to have an experience like this as Americans, to go back and then you would understand the black experience in America. And I think they would be able to answer the same question. Like, no, it's just, anything is the same. Like, if it's overt or covert, they're both the same thing. Yeah.
The result is the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually, there are places worse than here. So I don't want to bash on China for this one aspect and these tiny little things that have happened in 2 years, because I still love being in China. But yeah, it's palpable, and especially without this escape, that's what starts to build up. It's that resentment that I never usually would have felt. But
well, it feels like it's intensifying given the political climate.
Totally, yeah.
Well, even yesterday we were discussing.
We had a whole conversation.
I mean, we don't have to go too deep about it, but I'll use myself as an Asian American holding a U.S. passport. I'm already feeling some of the, like, when people find out that I am American, right? There's already this a little bit of like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, should we work together? Or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of feel, like this underlying prejudice almost.
Mm-hmm.
And even being Chinese looking, ethnically Chinese, I mean, as a joke, I was saying, like, because on my bio, when I was a director, I have to send out my bio, to get jobs and stuff like that. It's clearly states in the first line, I'm born in America, and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, should I take that out? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I should take it out, because these days, the climate, it's a lot more sensitive, being an American, especially as an American, Australian, American, UK.
Yeah. And this is a self-erasure. I mean, this is when people talk about erasure. That's exactly what you're literally erasing your identity to be able to pass. yeah, it's not a comfortable decision. But of course, there's no black and white. I think in every interaction, we are making very quick decisions based on, okay, to what extent do I, reveal that part of my identity or not, right?
And this ties into like, because as you gave me a new perspective, like talking to you, and I didn't never really realized it before, but when you were talking about your identity, when I, you know, called you a Brit, and you're like, well, I'm many other things, including a Brit, but I'm Jewish, I'm gay, I'm a lot of things. And it struck me, and it was a revelation to me, because we've talked about the idea of third culture, right? And from our personal experiences, we've talked before about this feeling of feeling like we are third culture kids because
Yeah.
of our, we're from the States, but we're living in China, and we don't feel like we are fully 100% accepted in either place. And that puts us in this kind of third culture space where we feel like maybe we're a little lost. We don't know what home is necessarily. And when you were talking about your own identity, I feel like that is just even more dynamic of a situation.
Yeah.
Given all the things that you identify with. And so how do you deal with this feeling of identity, feeling of belonging, feeling of like what your tribe is, what your home is? All that comes into play. And I can't really imagine like how it feels for you.
You're right. You're actually right. Yeah, I think that's built my self-awareness, because I do question it. I mean, I have time to question it. I'm not in a full-time job, so maybe that's also a function of why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's when I listen to your podcast, going back to the whole podcast conversation, I do feel that you guys, you say third culture. I would call your perspective quite binary. You are China versus America, which is great. But when you say that, and then you talk in terms of West versus East, that's when I think, is this West versus East? This is just China, US. And I appreciate it when you say China versus US, which are your two perspectives. But I've lived in 4 different places in Asia. So I when we talk about, using big words like West versus East, I actually like to have that. Everything is nuanced, right?
Yeah.
So it is a really weird place to be. In one way, it's a gift, because I can look at things from 13 different angles in a way that's my superpower, actually. And of course, the same superpower is a big weakness, because, yeah, I can never relate to people in a way that, look, I'm your people, so listen to me. This is what we should all be thinking, because no one really relates in the same way. I'm a European from Eastern Europe and the UK. I've lived in Germany, and I married an American. He's Californian, and we met in Asia. So already, it's 3. This is why we didn't actually have a wedding. We eloped, because to have a wedding where his family from the States, mine from Europe, and all our friends from Asia, it means that I fit everywhere and I fit nowhere.
Well, that's beautiful, though, to me. Like I feel like that should be the way we should be moving towards,
kind of, but
as a society.
But this is what I was saying was, you fit everywhere, but you fit nowhere at the same time. That's the dichotomy. That's, again, it's this duality.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a few things that I wanted to comment on and have a dialogue on. Okay, so the first thing you mentioned was this notion of being white, Caucasian, from your this background in China, feeling microaggression sometimes, right? Not blending in, maybe the feeling that the same rules don't apply to everyone, right? And we can definitely relate to that, right? I think we're also all saying that there are much more extreme versions of this. So experiencing this in our own way, and it's not everywhere, right? Because we're going to experience it as well, but gives us perspective on what other people have gone through. And it's important for us to understand what other people are going through. It's really important for us to understand that, to have gratitude, to have balance and perspective, and to understand we're not alone in this, right? a lot of people are experiencing. It's the human condition that Justin talks about, right? And when we're fighting for social justice, right? Because these are annoyances and nuisances for us most of the time. But when you get shot because of your skin color, then it's a matter of life and death. And so I think there's a certain level of, allyship and just like supporting that cause, that we know that there's still parts of the world, even the places that we're from, where this is still happening. And it's really, really unfortunate. And so we're not trying to, of course, equate our experience to that. But we are saying that we hope that in experiencing some of these things in a very minimal way, that it gives us more empathy for those things. And if more people experience even a small shock, right, then they might think twice about actually making other people go through this experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate your point there. From our perspective, and it's just the dialogue that's really important, because then we could take this judgmental view over the years that, Caucasian people can get away with anything in China, right? And they have certain privileges and stuff like that.
Which
And
is generally true.
It's true, but it's important for us to get your perspective. Like, there's always like a microscope in some ways on you, because visually you're identifiable. And so of course people all know that I'm not from here, because it's just by the way we dress, all that stuff.
True.
But at least I can kind of blend into the point where I'm not like a zebra and a bunch of horses. So in that sense, my mindset my inner voice doesn't get activated to say, oh, I'm different and people are pointing me out. Because some of this could just be in your head also, right?
Of course.
But it's also a reality that because you look so different, that you're going to have that inner voice. Whereas we look similar enough where I don't have my inner voice like activated that loud, right? Then I think the other point is that we're navigating this multicultural world, right? And connectivity, there's more and more connectivity. I was chatting with a Canadian friend that I met in Sashi over WeChat today, and he was listening to podcasts like Connectivity Creating Conflict, and he was like, I think that's a bunch of horseshit, right? Connectivity is neutral, but connectivity is, he was saying, is very different, because you used to build a road from A to B, from B to C, and eventually you could get from A to C, and it's very, very linear, point A to point B. But with connectivity now, you can literally draw a line from any point to any other point. And so where does the responsibility kind of lie? So we're navigating this very complex world. And sometimes we're going to be the majority, right? We're going to have the force of the majority. We're going to be like in the in-group, in the in-tribe. And we don't have to think about things, because we can just blend in with the masses. And sometimes we're going to be part of the minority, and we're going to face certain types of headwinds. And almost everyone experiences that. Even if you're a white Caucasian WASP in the US, they have inner voices too, right? I mean, they don't write the books just for minorities. I think they write all those books, psychology books, because Caucasian Americans also have a lot of fucked up mental issues, just like we do, right? And so everyone is going to paint themselves as a victim sometimes. And so I think the question is, okay, how do we have the dialogue? Because what I was thinking earlier was that Justin, myself, and Howie have the benefit of each other. We can talk through these things. And we use the show as self-therapy and self-reflection.
Yeah.
And we use the show as a collective identity, because we're not alone. And in a way you're alone, because you want to control everything and in that sense. And it's a little bit more lonely. But I think it's how do we create this positive, supportive, open framework? Because it's really important to know that you're not alone. There's fucking 100 billion people that have lived on this planet. For you to think that you're the only one that has problems is foolish. So I think it's then how do you look forward, right? How do we create a support network and plan so that we can be mentally healthy and happy about ourselves?
That's what I think we're both doing with our project. It is about putting that message out there. And you do have the advantage of having the three of you, and mine is much more solitary. But I do, when I meet every guest, I do get that energy. It's just not as intimate as what you can do over the course of 2 years, just day in, day out, meeting each other. I think the idea of connectivity is a tricky one, because that was the ideal of what the internet would be, right? We would all be connected, and then it would be this marketplace of ideas where the best ideas would come out. But the problem with connectivity is that we connect with what we already feel is correct. And then we go into our echo chambers, and we only are connecting with the ones who agree with our own ideas. So, that word is a bit triggering because it's not working. It's what the world should have been.
And we can send garbage down the network with ease now, which is a problem.
That's the problem. So all we can do, yes, is, the way forward is to do what we're doing, and to have open dialogues and to put out stuff that helps to bridge the misunderstandings that are from point A to Z, But it's slightly depressing because, I think about if you think about the way things might progress, it's not necessarily a happy ending, where are we going now, right? So, yeah, I like to think of the idea of, yes, we're not in this alone and let's all join hands. But then, the bastards are winning right now. That's the problem.
But there have been I'm not a huge, I am a fan of history, but I'm not. I would say I'm not hugely knowledgeable. But if I've kind of observed the patterns, throughout history, there just consistently been bleak moments. They've just consistently been bleak moments, way bleaker than now. And somehow mankind has kind of pulled through and found solutions. And there are these people that are sending positive messages down the network, right? That are really trying to improve the network, improve the connectivity, send better messages, right? Get rid of the negative messages. And so I just have to think that it's easy for us to kind of zoom in on our moment and say that it's kind of bleak or there's issues with it and worry about where this is going. And at the same time, there's not a whole lot we can do about it.
That's the thing.
There's really nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
But just start sending more positive messages down the pipe.
Yep.
Interpreting the messages you're getting in the most positive way, and helping people embrace that and just kind of let the chips fall where they may. But I think overall, good. We're safe and, we have access to resources.
Yeah, but I feel like what you just mentioned about how history has played out, and there always has been the good that has come out. But one thing I feel like I want to point out is that it's always after the destruction.
Yeah.
It's after where the rubble, through the rubble comes out the good.
If anything, the history proves that it's cyclical. So it's like you going back into the deep and then into the darkness, and then
because you can only come out. The only light can come out, and I think that's the scary part, because we have not hit the destruction part yet. You know what I mean? And we don't know what that is going to be like. But at the same time, what I'm trying to pull from what Eric is saying is that you don't want to fall into the trap of just swimming in the negativity.
Totally.
And then you feel like there's no hope. And I agree with you. I agree that you can't allow yourself to fall into that trap. And it's so easy to fall into that trap, especially today with the connectivity that we're talking about, with the echo chamber that we're talking about. It's easy because it's easy just to listen and agree, right? It's hard to disagree and really challenge what your thought is.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's cure this, guys. Okay, the four of us. Okay, let's hold hands.
Hold hands. Let's sing a song.
We're gonna solve this.
Well, can I end with a quote?
Please do.
All right. Not to be a Debbie Downer on all of the pessimism.
Well, even more.
I think that, look, there are a lot of bleak things that have happened. I don't think we're going to predict the bleak things that are going to happen in the future by looking at the past. I think there's going to be bleak things that happen, but they're going to surprise us. They're going to be things that we never thought of, and that's how the future works, right? So I don't think we're going to look to the past and be like, oh, this kind of stuff, bad stuff, and then, oh, this is the bad stuff that's going to happen in the future. Shit's going to happen. And when it happens, you're not going to know. It's going to land right on you, right? And so there's a certain resilience and optimism that we just all have to practice. And when we're in good times, we just have to remember that there are bad times. And then when we're in bad times, we just need to, it's easy for me to say this during good times, but I think during the good times, you really, really have to appreciate it. We are in good times now. And I don't want to get to the point where there's bad times and be like, fuck, man, I wish I could go back to the good times. Every time I get sick physically, I'm like, why don't I just appreciate my life normally? Because I'm so miserable right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so the quote I wanted to share was from Thomas Jefferson. And he just said, how much pain they have cost us, the evils which have never happened.
Yeah. It's kind of almost similar to the idea of like 9 out of 10 of your concerns are unfounded.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and one final point that I do want to stress that maybe was lost, I think, in this conversation was that I agree with you, Eric. Like what I want to echo kind of what Howie says. Like we shouldn't dwell on all this pessimism and bleakness that we do feel. It's not like it's unfounded, but what's the point of like dwelling on it when we should make the best out of our circumstances? And speaking of our circumstances, like we talk all this stuff, but for me, I'll speak for myself. Like I do feel so grateful to be living and experiencing this window of history, especially the place I am here in China. Like, like I feel different than how you described your feelings of wanting to leave and vent, right? To me, because I'm more of like, I guess, a homebody, like I wouldn't rather be anywhere else but here in Shanghai, in China. I feel so privileged to be here. And I just feel like I'm here in a certain window of history that is like the golden age to be here.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't want that to get lost because so often we like to be critical of a lot of different places that we're wherever we are. But at the same time, like my pet peeve is like we're also where we are, we're living off of the privileges of that place and that culture.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to be balanced to our approach and looking and hearing from all different perspectives, especially including yours, Oscar.
You're right. You're both right. Yeah, it's something where it's nice to hear you say it and articulate it because it's something which you're absolutely right. We are privileged to be here in this point of time where we're being well looked after compared to.
It's a special time,
anywhere else.
actually.
Totally. Yeah, it's a nice place to end this conversation, and I do agree with you.
Yeah, and I think we also realize that like the pandemic, all of these things, all these bigger forces we're talking about, they're massive forces, and they're going to move in ways that, that they're going to move, right? We won't be able to change that. And
Tectonic plates.
Yeah, and you can't fight it. That's the thing, right? You can't fight it. You can only kind of live with it. And everyone responds in a different way. Like with the pandemic, some people, like homebodies, they're like, this is great. And then some people are going fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you like to travel, you like to get out, and being able to travel once a quarter, maybe that would solve everything for you, right? And everyone's different. And Justin's just like, oh man, like fucking 100 more years of pandemic, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And then I think the last thing is just the like, I mean, this whole thing with pessimism, right? Like I think that, like internally, I hold a lot of pessimism. My inner voice, I have a very loud inner voice that's full of pessimism. So when I hear pessimism outside of me, I immediately recognize it, and my optimistic voice fights it. And so while I'm poor at fighting my inner voice and pessimism inside, I'm a crusader against any kind of pessimism that happens outside. And so I think you'll find that some of the most pessimistic people, they come across really optimistic because they're trying to fight that fight.
I agree. And this is kind of, can I end this?
Yes, please.
Because this is the dynamic that I love about your podcast, because I wouldn't have the forum to bring out this pessimism. Like it's not something which I talk about.
Yeah.
Like I talk about it with my husband, or I talk about it just in close circles. But this is why I like your podcast, and I believe others do too, because it is a forum that you can bring out stuff that I would never say on my own podcast. And I wouldn't say this publicly in elsewhere, and that's thanks to you guys. So I want to say once again, thank you for what you do, and I hope you do carry on. And even if you're feeling pessimistic, please continue with your optimistic podcast. I do appreciate it.
I have an idea. You should take all the most pessimistic clips from this show and then put it on your show.
Oh, dude, no, that is an indictment on my show. My show is fun, but yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank
it was
you.
a pleasure speaking to you, sharing with you. Good luck on everything. Where can people find you, Oscar?
So the podcast is everywhere. It's on Ximalaya, of course. It's on Xiaoyuzhou in China. It's under Mosaic of China, or 中国 Mosaic. And then outside, it's, of course, you can find the website. The website actually has, believe it or not, every episode I have the transcript. So if you're not good at English, you can follow the
That
transcript.
is great. I know a lot of our listeners like that. So
It's hard to do. It takes time, but it is nice for someone. It's not just for people whose first language isn't English, but it's also for people who are hard of hearing. And if I'm the one saying I should be inclusive, then I should also include people who can't hear. So that was one of the reasons. Mosaicofchina.com, yeah, everywhere else.
You also have additional content, and there's a lot of different.
Yes. So I've tried to be creative in terms of like giving the most loyal people who listen some extra content. So you can go on something called iFadien, where you can get for every episode, there's a longer version of every episode,
Yes.
which is 10 to 15 minutes longer.
That's great.
That was awesome. Once again, thanks, Oscar. It was a pleasure. Cheers.
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 All right. Peace.
Oh wait, do we say who we are?
No, but you should.
We always do that.
Go on, do it.
Why are you
do it.
breaking
okay,
tradition, Justin?
We
Listen,
always
we
do
don't
it.
do that.
Ritual.
All right, guys.
Ritual is important to these guys.
That was Oscar. I'm Justin.
I'm pretty optimistic today.
And I am neutral today.
Peace.
I didn't know the dub would come out so badly. Oh my god. Like,